You can see he survived. So I'm Gil Sparks. Because I'm comfortable in front of a mic, I volunteered to be tonight's moderator. I don't intend to say a whole lot, but I won't promise I won't. So we don't have a set agenda. So Carolyn, if you would go to the first slide. Oh, I have it. Never mind. As I said, we haven't practiced. So these are our expected presenters tonight. With here, Robyn, who many of you know, Matt Hughey, who has a local rattlesnake avoidance class, had indicated he was going to try to be here tonight, and then Dr. William McNitt.
Oh,
We have a spelling issue, it's really McNitt, who's Suzanne's son. He'll be here as soon as they finish up with dinner.
He's with a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old and his wife in Oscars because they raced up here from Denver after picking everybody up in daycare.
So we want you to be appropriately appreciative when they show up. Okay. So as I said, we've not practiced this. I'm going to start off with Gwyd, and what I'm going to ask you to do, Gwyd, if you look at the screen, is talk about the differences between a rattlesnake and a bull snake. Do you want the microphone?
I don't think I need it. Or can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the way I catch snakes at yellow. As you see, they look very similar. And we get calls often for, there's a snake in my yard, and I think it's a rattlesnake, and it's making a rattling noise. Well, these make rattling noises too. Their tail, the last section of their tail is hard, and they can smack it against the ground and sound just like a rattlesnake. So you can't tell from that. You'll notice the head shape on both of these. The rattlesnake has that classic arrowhead head shape. Rattlesnakes' bodies also tend to be shorter and chubbier, not fat chubby, but kind of thicker. And the bull snakes tend to be longer and thinner, and also quite a lot larger. The prairie rattlesnake, which is the only rattlesnake we have in this area, grows to 3'3" and a little bit more. The longest one ever found in Colorado was 4'7". So you're going to find bull snakes 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot. And if it's something that long, chances are it's a bull snake. Bull snakes are non-toxic, they're non-venomous, they will bite you. The inside mouth of a non-venomous snake is made for grabbing its prey. So it's got these cool little teeth that kind of hook back. You don't want your hand in the snake's mouth. But non-venomous, venomous. You'll notice here, you can't really see the end of the tail, but it does not have a rattle on it, though it does have a horny kind of a tip that it can make that noise. But the rattlesnake's pretty obvious. Also, looking at a rattlesnake's face, you don't necessarily want to get that close to figure out what it is, but it has pits here and here. Hence the term pit viper. They use those, their heat sensing organs. They can actually see in the dark with them when they're hunting their prey. They can tell them, since they have them bilaterally, they can actually home in and target their prey. So your hands, your body gives off heat. So they can see, even when you don't think they can see, they can see. It's quite a lot of bites people get are when they're up underneath a log, flipping it over, picking up a rock, because the snake can see your hands really well. They don't need light to strike. And they can use these to aim, along with this. But basically that's it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, you can also tell from the type of scales. There's looks like a beaded pattern. This has more of the arrowhead shape. Okay?
Questions?
I noticed up there the bull snake is kind of greenish. Are they ever brownish or tannish or other
Yes. They can be all kinds of colors. They go the range from gray to green to tan to brown to reddish. They can be almost any color. And I can't tell you why they're not different species, they're just different adaptations. The same with the rattlesnake. They can be a bunch of different colorations as well. But they're all prairie rattlesnakes.
We had a question over here first now.
Oh, I'm fine.
Bertie, you're on. Bertie, you raise your hand.
So I have two questions. So if you're wearing boots, say rubber boots, and the snake has those little sensors, will it not strike the boot, but try to strike where the more heat is coming from, like from your real body? Or will they strike your boot accidentally?
Snakes, when they strike at you, are telling you basically to go away. They're not trying to hurt you, they're not necessarily trying to find a place to envenomate you. 80% of bites are dry, meaning they bite you, but they don't choose. The adult snakes can choose whether to use their venom or not, because they need that venom to hunt. So they're not really trying to hurt you, they're scared and trying to protect themselves. So chances are they would get your boot. Now, I have moved hundreds of snakes, over my life. I have never had a snake strike my boots, though I wear Kevlar snake suits.
Step out here and show us.
These are also my go-to shoes. I wear these all the time too, because they're very comfortable, but they're Kevlar lined and they're snake-proof.
You're not worried about it jumping up past your knee?
No, and they don't jump. They can strike 1/3 to 1/2 of their body length.
You just flat mostly.
Yes. Well, yeah, they
A
can go.
little bit, but yeah, if it's
Yeah.
a 3-foot snake, it's not gonna
Jumping up.
jump.
No, they won't jump off the ground and get you in trouble. And they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to make you leave them alone. And the thing with the rattlesnake is their mouths open like this, and the fangs stick forward, so they're kind of impaling more than biting. But a rubber boot can stop them. Or we recommend the snake gaiters. If you're going to be out in your yard a lot and you have snakes or you have encounters with snakes, the gaiters they're under $40. They have either Kevlar or plastic or something in them that prevents the snake from biting through it, and you just Velcro them on. And they will keep you safe from the knee down. And that's usually where, unless you're down on the ground with your hands, that's usually where you get bit. Where'd you get bit, John?
Back of the ankle.
Back of the ankle.
What time of day and where?
It was at my house, near the old pile of wood that has the snakes in it.
You knew better.
And it was about 11.
And your protective shoes were,
I'm wearing my protective.
Yeah, I was going out with sandals and taking the hummingbird feeder about 8 o'clock at night. They were on the second step. There he was, and he was rattling at me. A lot of people get bit because people come out fast at night and the snake doesn't have any warning and it just strikes them, get scared. A lot of people get bit dusk because they don't see where they're putting their feet.
Right, so the prairie rattlesnakes, are they live bearers? I've heard about these,
Yes.
these clusters of.
they're viviparous. They do give live birth. They can have anywhere between 5 and 25 offspring. Now, 25 is a very big snake. That's the biggest snake. Average is probably 5 to 10 or 11. And they are live birth. We caught one yesterday.
This time of years.
Yep,
Yeah.
August through September, October is when they're delivering their babies. The babies will stay with the mother for a week, maybe a little bit longer, and then they're on their own. They're born, ready to go. Precocial.
Do they have the prairie rattlesnakes like a large or like a home range? So if you relocate them, or they gonna try to get back to where?
Prairie rattlesnakes have the largest range of any snake in the U.S. and actually the whole North American continent. They go all the way from Canada all the way down to Mexico, but their actual range is about a mile for a particular snake.
On the next, I think it's the next slide, it shows the distribution of prairie rattlesnakes in Colorado, if you wanna, but that way, yeah, but.
Let's stay with this slide if we have questions here.
What do they actually feed on?
Crickets,
Yeah.
worms,
Bugs,
anything they can do.
worms.
And they can dislocate their jaws, remember, so it looks like it's narrow, but they can take a baby rabbit. And just unhook everything and scratch.
We Gwydion got a rattlesnake this year that had just killed a baby rabbit. And so, we moved the rabbit with the rattlesnake.
Yeah, that was a fun one, though, but I had to get it out from under a rock.
So Matt, we have a place for you up here. Will, we have a place for you also. These are our other two presenters.
Yeah. Matt, you have to go. Do you want me to hold it up for you?
Thank you.
Okay, so I heard that with a strike, they can't strike unless they're coiled, or can they? Can they strike if they're stretched?
They can strike pretty much any way they're oriented, they can get enough push off the ground. So if they're not coiled, don't think that you can't get bit. There's a lot of mythology out there about rattlesnakes. Best thing is to stay away from them.
Go ahead.
I've seen them coiled up and rattling, and when they're rattling, that's a warning, right? Does the rattling mean they're about to bite you, or is it
Well,
just
they're
more?
just saying,
They're
no,
just like hanging out, but if they're rattling and kind of perking up, is that like second warning, like what's the language of the warnings?
Snakes are all instinct. There's not a lot of thought going on in those heads. So I can't predict what a snake will or won't do. It's, you as a human, you need to stay back 5, 10 feet away from the snake. The reason that they're coiled up is because that gives the smallest target to a predator. They don't look at us as food. We're predators. And they look at us, and you'll see that when you move, the snake follows you. And that's not because he's trying to target you or she's trying to target you. It's because you're a threat to it, and it's worried it's going to eat you. So that's why they also keep facing you, because their most vulnerable place is behind the neck, which is where the raptors and the foxes and the skunks and the coyotes and things get them, and dogs.
One more, and then we're gonna move on to the next slide.
Okay, so does the rattlesnake sense any difference between the horses and other big mammals, or will they feel threatened by a bear as easily as a human? So they'll fight
anything that's close, I think you need to
Yeah.
base.
anything around by.
Dogs, critters.
Coyotes
They-
eat snakes, foxes eat snakes, skunks eat snakes,
Mhm. Bears will eat snakes.
all the raptors, owls, all.
Okay, so I didn't make introductions, apologies. This is Gwydion Winkelmeyer. He is a local snake person. And he and I work together to help make people who are worried about snakes in the proximity of their homes, find them another location. So we have two new, first here, Robyn Sloan.
Retired biology teacher.
Retired biology.
I'll tell you
William McNitt. Yep. Dr. William McNitt, Suzanne Summers' son. And he is graciously here because he's an ER doc and he's gonna talk to us about some experiences there. And then we have Matt Hughey, who has the local rattlesnake avoidance class. So let's go to the next slide, it says. So, you wanna talk to this, Robyn?
Well, a little bit,
You want the mic?
yeah, teacher, yeah, I would know. There's talk now of renaming the prairie rattlesnake as just the western rattlesnake. So you might see it as both places, but the scientific name is still the same. It's Crotalus viridis. And this is the head of one that wouldn't leave my front porch. Here's his rattler, if you want to take it out and rattle. Yeah, you can see the fangs in there, but it's a small snake compared to other rattlesnakes. The western diamondback has a white band on it, and they find that more on the western side and the southern side of Colorado. But for the eastern half, we just have the prairie rattlesnake. And they're not very nasty, they're not aggressive, they just want to be left alone.
Questions?
Prairie rattlesnakes, is there a limit to, what elevation?
They used to say 7,000 feet, and that Estes Park wouldn't have them. Well, they had a couple up there last summer. My cabin's at 8,500 feet. Somebody had a rattlesnake, a small one. They're moving up because the temperature's getting warmer. So who knows how high they're gonna get.
There are rattlesnake species that go up to 11,000 feet, but they don't stay up there. They go into a den a lot earlier than they would because the temperature is more the factor than the oxygen.
Yes, sir. What do they do with the baby rattlesnake?
What do you do with? Like if you found a baby rattlesnake, what would you do?
It depends on where it's found. If it's around a home or it's around where animals are, dogs, cats, poultry, we will try to move it to a less populated area. Colorado has a wildlife and parks, says their range is 1 mile. They prefer that they don't get relocated off of the property that they were found on. That's not practical in all cases.
Especially in town.
So, we try to keep them as close to that 1 mile radius that we can, not always successful.
The babies are capable of taking care of themselves. And as soon as they leave the mom, they're on their own. So they can take care of themselves, more so than a baby anything else.
Gwen, I heard you earlier say that, adult rattlesnakes could control whether the women's venom or not. I'm assuming babies can't control.
No, but there are a lot of myths running around about baby rattlesnakes having more toxic venom. That's not true. The venom is the same. The thing is they don't have the regulators. They haven't learned.
Yeah.
And the reason that the adults regulate it is, first off, you're not a prey thing. They don't want to eat you. Secondly, they need that venom to take down their real prey, and they don't want to waste it. It takes them a while to regenerate. But they can control the amount, whether it's going to be a fry bite or not. But the little guys, not so much. It's like a child. You stick your finger in the mouth, and you expect to get bit.
So here are some resources for you. If you come across a snake, you can call Boulder County. While we don't have our number up there, you can contact Gwydion or myself. And if you want to, my card's in the back there. Some cards over here, but my number, if you want it, is 509-679-3346. If that was too fast for you, I'll share it before you walk out of here. But we're here to help calm people who are concerned about rattlesnakes around their property. So these are some suggestions. Robyn, do you want to speak to any of these?
Dogs, some dogs are very cautious, and when they see something like that, they'll back up. Other dogs, they'll put their nose right around the space. So it kind of depends on your pet. You can't trust them, keep them on a leash. If you can't call them back right away, they need to be on a leash. Especially tall grass and brush, especially along the edges of paths, especially in all of our open space. Most snakes will not be in the middle of a path because then they can be seen by raptors. They want to be on the edge with a little bit of grass hanging over them, so we've got some cover. So that's, sometimes you walk right by them, you never see them. And keep your grass low, so they can't come up close to the house or places you're walking.
Do they like the low grass at all? If you keep your lawn?
They want to be hidden.
If you keep your lawn down, it gives them less protection, so they're gonna gravitate to where they want more protection. So, Matt, if you could speak, we haven't mentioned about your avoidance training here. Can you talk a little about what you offer and when you offer it?
Yeah, that's a specific training. I'm not trying to advertise for my service. I just happen to be the.
I forced you to be here.
Yeah, well, it just happened to be the only one in the state that does it. There are a couple others that will occasionally come through, but they're from Texas and they don't really do it the Boulder way. I care for my snakes, and pretty much what you're paying for is the care of the snake for the year. The last one that died, I think, was 19 years old. So our snakes have had a ductectomy surgery, so they're incapable of delivering venom if I make a mistake, which I have done once, is about $1,000. So if there's contact with the snake, it's just simply a puncture. But the main thing, I see a lot of people like, they want to get into the dog's mind and what does the dog think, like Robyn said. Some are naturally averted to the sound of the rattle, just like we are. You don't need to know what a rattlesnake is if you meet one and it's making that noise. Our DNA puts the hair on our neck up for a reason, so it's not so much getting in the minds of the animal. You can know all you want about a rattlesnake, but if you step on one, he's gonna bite your ass and you might die. So I'm of course attached to the dogs. I've cared for literally probably tens of thousands of bookings and never had one bit. And I am a freak. I live on 5 acres where there's rattlesnake dens. I live and die 8 months out of the year looking where I step, and I have almost had dogs bit. I've almost stepped on them. I've almost, yeah. One time my foot, the heel was down and I was walking. That's how much time I had. I saw it. I'm also colorblind, so very difficult to see a rattlesnake. So the number one thing for me with dogs and humans, just before you reach down, doing anything, look, and you just have to pause. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that and almost didn't want it to be lazy and not look, but I've found so many snakes over the years, like the hundreds and hundreds, just in my lifestyle. It's unusual. There's one of my neighbors, she could tell you, you can go a year or two without seeing them, then you can go a season where you have 25 on your little spot of land. So awareness is the number one thing, and just, I always assume there's a dog. The rattlesnake training that I do is a specific course where you bring your dog to me and I introduce them to snakes in a controlled environment, and I use static, you guys would call it a shock collar, but it's static electricity, big difference. That's what I use to correct the dogs. A number of people in here I see have had their dogs through the course. And yeah, I stopped counting at around 40 or 50 dogs that have been saved from the training. So I firmly believe in the training. It's a huge hassle. I'm looking forward to the time when I don't have to do it anymore, just when I can retire, because it's a big push physically. But for the actual training and what it translates from the human to the dog world, it's the most important thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, what does it cost to treat a dog that's been bitten? What have you heard?
Well, it's $1,200 if you're in Kansas and it's a backwoods that probably $2 to $3 grand. Your dog might die. Something that I can't. Yeah, I am a high school dropout. So my experience is like what I've learned from my friends who are herpetologists. My business partner is the one who cares for the snakes 24/7. We have, I don't want to say we, there's about 3 in there that have the surgery, but he owns and cares for 45 rattlesnakes of all types. So I get a lot of my information from him, and I really don't like rattlesnakes. The day of the training, it's a 4-day event. Each dog only takes 10 minutes, but for me, the trainer, it's not super calming or anxiety relieving to just like spend your working day with these things between your legs, but keeping them safe from the dog when you see that it translates and you get into work mode. We also work with the snakes. They're pretty smart little critters. So they kind of know what's up with what we're doing. And it's hard to explain without showing it. And I don't want anyone to think I'm crazy, but you could talk to people who've been through it. It's like it just puts it on the level of the animal language, which is, if I'm in range of that thing, he's gonna hurt me. That's it, period. There's no emotion attached to it. The dogs, most of them are my customer dogs from my other business. And they're still happy to see me. When the training is done, they believe that the stimulation is coming from the snake. So beyond that, I would say you just have to really, really be careful, especially with children. I'm interested to hear what the doctor has to say, but we did lose someone, a 7-year-old, I think, in Denver 2 summers ago. And it's really fun to like be aware of snakes and know that you don't want to get bit one, but there's so many out here that I could make a mistake and get bit. And I'll just say it again, I am a freak. I am on the ground, always looking 5 feet past the range of whatever leash of whatever dog I'm on. And that's kind of what it takes for my life, because I have hundreds of dogs on a snake property. I also have rattlesnake proof fencing, so I have a safe area on my property, but nothing's 100% safe in nature. And the things I've seen rattlesnakes do and animals interacting with them, yeah, I could talk for hours on that alone. So we never exactly know what the animals are
So
thinking.
Matt, somebody who's been through your training, how frequently should they get retrained?
Every dog, my dream dog is a dog that moves to Lyons, and you get them at 2 months old, and they're born in December. So I can train them at 7 months old in June, and then again next year. So by the time they're a year and 7 months old, they have 2 trainings. That's my dream dog. And that doesn't always happen. People are on vacation. Some dogs I don't get to them until they're 4 or 5, or that's ideal, but anytime you can get one done.
So once somebody's come through your training, how many people have been through Matt's training? So a number of you. So somebody brought a dog that's older than what you just outlined. It's the first time. Should they have a repeat training in another year, 2 years, or never?
My standard answer is I want them twice. Sometimes I can tell that a dog is finished, like within 10 seconds. I know that sounds insane, but once the training begins, the way that I'm connected to the animal and the way that their body language talks to me, there are certain signs that certain dogs and certain breeds will do where they look at me and say never again. So that might be, if they have that dog, one and done, but still they would need to see a second time.
Typically, at least twice.
Yes,
Okay.
but if you can only do once,
It's
that
better
could
than
save,
none.
it could save your dog's life just the same.
So Suzanne, or would you prefer Dr. Simmons?
Suzanne.
Suzanne, you shared a story with me the other day about somebody who got bit. Can you explain, first share your background with us, and then explain that incident that happened just recently?
Yeah.
Do you want the mic?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm an internal medicine MD, and I work in hospitals. I'm a hospitalist. So I admit rattlesnake bite patients from the ER after my ER colleagues or my son, the ER doctor, does the initial stabilization and management. I've had 2 in the past few weeks. One was from Lyons and one was, I would call it from Lyons, although I think it was officially Longmont off Highway 66. The first one was a person who was working in their garden and felt a sort of thumping feeling against their leg and didn't really realize that it was a snake and didn't think much of it. But then later noticed 2 holes, fang marks, and swelling and discoloration and whatnot when he came to the hospital. And by the time I got her from the ER, her leg was quite red and bruised looking, and you could clearly see the fang marks. She had a lot of nausea, vomiting, and sweating initially from the bite. She was stable. Her blood pressure was very briefly slightly low in the ER, but then that did not occur later. And she was in the hospital for a few days because she got infected, and it was a significant issue. The second one was a gentleman who told me that he was leaning over a pile of wood and he got it on his index finger. And it was a baby. He said it was a really little baby snake, but it was significant. He had a lot of swelling and he did lose his blood pressure when he came into the ER, and he had anaphylaxis or anaphylactoid, and Will, my son, knows more about that, so whichever the difference is. But nonetheless, he did have that systemic reaction from this baby snake. And then I admitted him upstairs, and he had very significant swelling of the finger. He got, both of those patients, of course, got antivenom and the other treatments that Will can describe for you. And obviously both of them lived. But I was looking at this going, I live up Stone Canyon. I feel like my property is rattlesnake central. Matt knows. I've had 2 dogs bitten. I've caught, 3, 4, 5 this summer in my driveway, in my front yard, in various places. So these patients, I looked at them and I went, that could have been me. And I do have a pair of boots, just like Gwyd's. I have the Kevlar, they're from Tennessee.
Fashion forward.
Yeah. And I've had them for 25 years and they're very expensive. They were like $400 and something. And a friend of mine said, well, those are too expensive, Suzanne. And I said, well, 25 years, divide $400. And how much does a rattlesnake bite cost in the ER? $30,000, $50,000 more. So it's $400 for the boots for 25 years, worth it.
John, was your treatment expensive?
I believe so.
So should I ask Sally instead?
We have insurance.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which helps, right?
A lot.
Thank
So, I don't know if this is the same person, but we got a call this summer about an individual who'd been bitten in the garden later in the afternoon up toward Pinewood and was wearing shorts in high grass. That's not something that we encourage. When it's hot out, people like to do it. John likes to do it. Not picking on you, but I can. But, think about the clothing when you're out. It can make a difference.
And we'll have some suggestions towards the end of this about that.
So these are some prevention tips that we've come across that are you can Google on the internet. Leaving food out, besides attracting bears, it attracts mice, which attract snakes. So keeping food away from the foundations of your home is a very good idea. My brother, who's back here, can attest to the fact he came home to our house one day, and on our back porch, right by the door, was a rattlesnake poised right there. So we've had the experience at our house.
He had a little sign that said, catch me.
So Matt, you talked about having the fencing. What's your experience with fencing?
I'm surprised there aren't more like it. There's a couple between here and Pinewood that I know, but it's just a 3-foot section, a typical, what I call a dog park fence, a 5-footer post and beam or whatever wooden fences people usually use. They put that hog fence in between. So if you trench a line, 4 to 6 inches and put the 3-foot section in there, galvanized screening, 1/4 inch. I've never had a snake in my yard, but it's also, owls, coyotes, rattles, anything can happen in nature in the middle of the night. But it does give me confidence. Again, my lifestyle is different than most, but it makes it so that the dogs have a safe area on my property. But I recommend that, especially people with kids.
The barred rattlesnake is not a good climber.
They can't climb them. I've had them
They can climb, but they're not really great.
I had them climb up a 3-foot T-post into a bluebird house, got in there, grabbed a baby bluebird, which was too big, couldn't get the head back out the hole. So the snake is trying to get his head out of there, and we were able to kill it because it was too close to a house. But they can, if they have the right circumstances, they can climb.
I had one in my barn before it burned down in the Stone Canyon fire last summer, but I walked into my barn one day and, I was doing chores of my animals. And then as I was leaving, all of a sudden I heard rattling and I went, whoa. And so I stopped and I looked, trying to figure out where it was. It was right in front of me. I was standing up and it had gone up there to get mice. And it was up there, like level with me. And I was looking at it going, whoa, dude, I did not know you could be there. Bull snakes are good climbers.
Those next ones are
Yes, they climb up bricks.
Okay, so in the interest, we said this session only goes to 7:30. We're willing to stay longer, but in the interest of time, I'd like to introduce Dr. McNitt. And if you'd share what you do and what you've seen relative to rattlesnakes.
You
want the
don't, yeah, you don't want me on mic, sorry, I'm like way too loud at baseline. So we're looking at, I'm an ER doc out in Brighton, so we see a fair share of snakes out there. I did 2 different wilderness medicine trainings with Knowles. And then I also do medical direction for a whole bunch of ambulance and fire services, so we run into it kind of out there in the Commerce City area, Bar Lake and all that. So I was trying to figure out what kind of would be most useful for folks. I'm gonna run through just real quick what to do if you get bitten, because that's probably the thing that is most important for people to remember. And then I can talk just a little bit about what is it we're gonna do for you in the hospital, what are the products that you're gonna receive, and why is it important to not get bitten because of the cost of those things. So the long story short is, after you have a strike where you think you might have been bitten, the first thing to do is get away from the snake, because they should not be able to nail you again. But a lot of the bites are dry, and they don't exhaust their venom supply on the first bite, even if they do nail you. So what you want to do is calmly walk away and find a safe place to sit down. And then you want to sit down and take a deep breath, because most of the time you're not going to die. And you don't have an emergency yet. You're about to have an emergency. But right now, what you want to do is not cause a bigger problem, run into another snake, if you're up on one of the trails here and on an exposed area and falling down a cliff, whatever. So get somewhere safe, sit down, take a breath, and then expose the area where you think you got hit. If you felt that whack on your pants or your boot and you realize there's a snake there, get it off and take a look. If there's no broken skin, no evidence of injury, and it's not tender, chances are you didn't get poked. If you're at all concerned, go get care. But if you're in a situation where evacuating is practical, is impractical and it's going to be expensive or impossible, if there's no evidence that anything broke the skin, chances are nothing broke the skin. And if that didn't happen, then you didn't get the venom in you, which is what needs to happen. It's a puncture wound, and then they're shooting venom into the tissue right below the skin. So if that doesn't happen, you're safe. When in doubt, seek care, because you can get those issues where you have a little puncture and you don't realize it, or it looks like an abrasion, it looks just like a little scratch, and it was actually a deeper injury. And right now it doesn't hurt at all. And then tomorrow all of a sudden you lose your hand. So if you do have evidence, then you take it seriously. What the current recommendations are for these injuries like this is to immobilize the affected body part. In dudes, it is often going to be your hand. The joke we always tell in the ER is the words most commonly uttered before a rattlesnake bite are "here, hold my beer." At the end of the day, people mess around with snakes, and particularly out here where they look very similar to bull snakes, people get into trouble with grabbing at them. And so if it is an arm, immobilize that. If it's your leg and you need to walk off the Rattlesnake Mountain, probably you're not going to immobilize your leg unless you're calling for a helicopter or rocket rescue to get you off there. So if you can immobilize the part, great. If you can't, that's okay. It's not the end of the earth. The reason we want you to immobilize it is those fangs are going into your skin and depositing venom just below the skin in the fat and muscle tissue there. And there's lymphatics, that's sort of low pressure immune system that drain back and eventually get to your heart. And what you're trying to do is delay the passage of venom from here, where it's going to cause local tissue damage, to here, where it's going to go into your bloodstream and become a systemic issue. And that's when you get some of the more serious complications. And so if we can not sit there and pump all the muscles in our extremity and keep it below the level of our heart, then we can, in theory, delay that. I have not seen any good data that makes any difference, but that's okay. Remove clothing and accessories that are constricting. This is the thing that gets people right here. You get bitten here, or here, or here, and you don't take your ring off, and you go to the ER and you sit in the waiting room for 5 hours, and then your hand swells up, and now we're trying to cut your ring off, and you're losing your finger. So if you have an extremity bite like that, get your watch off, get your rings off. If you have bracelets, any of that stuff, get it off. Because when that swelling happens, it's gonna hit hard and fast and you're not gonna notice. And then you're not gonna be able to get that thing off and you lose a finger. If it's a bracelet, you can get in trouble. The other thing with this is if you're in town, you can call 911 or you can get in your car and drive down to the hospital. If you're not in town, if you're up on a trail or you're out on a piece of property way out there, if you're up here in the elk country or whatever, you need to make a decision about whether you're gonna get yourself out or not. And I got this question recently, if I'm up on rattlesnake mountain, what do I do? Sorry, what do I do? How do I get off of that? And the answer is, if you're pretty close to your car, walk yourself out. Because by the time you call 911 and they get a rescue team together, they can come in with a litter and put you on it and then 8 men carry you out. That's hours. Even if you're, an hour from the trailhead or walking, you're in 5 minutes. It's a long way to get people out and it's really, really hard to do. So if you can walk yourself out to your car, do that because it's probably gonna be faster. On the other hand, if you're feeling crummy, or if you have underlying health stuff where a rattlesnake bite is starting to catch up with you, it's gonna make you sicker, call 911 and say, hey, I just got nailed, here's where I am, I either need help getting out or I'm gonna start working my way out and you have a team coming in. It's just a balance, it's a decision you're gonna have to make in the moment. Do I feel like I can get out? And the answer most of the time is yes. With very rare exception, they don't get lucky and inject venom directly into your bloodstream. And until that happens, it gets into your bloodstream, you're not gonna have systemic effects from these usually. So it takes a little while for it to catch up with you. Where to go after that? Emergency room, every time. It's not the drum up business, I don't care, I hate seeing rattlesnake bites. But you need, if you need treatment, the place you're gonna get that is an ER. This is not something, a product that you're gonna have sitting in the refrigerator, your local docks, or the urgent cares, or anything like that. These are phenomenally expensive products. We order them, they sit on a shelf, we don't use them, and we throw out a $20,000 vial of drug, and it's just a loss for the hospital, and that's it. So they're not gonna be found in most of your clinics. There are some rare exceptions. Some places, the zoos will have it. Some places, vet clinics will have stuff. But most towns, the place you want to go, here it's going to be right down Longmont, closer to Estes, you can go there. But you want to go to an actual real emergency room. The freestanding ones probably are not going to have these products because they're prohibitively expensive. And now you're going to get an ambulance transfer bill to another hospital. So find a real hospital with a real ER that's attached to the hospital so that you can ensure you're not getting necessary transfers unless it's just you can't get somewhere else. And again, when in doubt, get the ambulance right. I also hate riding on ambulances and I work for a living, but at the end of the day, if you're feeling sick, call 911 gets help. Why do we want to take these seriously? So at the end of the day, there's a huge number of proteins and enzymes and neurotoxins in venom. They have stuff that affects your brain and your nerves. They have stuff that affects your heart. They have stuff that dissolves local tissue, makes your blood vessels leaky, and makes your blood not clot, so that you can't blood leaks. That becomes a real problem if you have an area that starts to get dissolved basically and fall apart, and now you have bleeding that won't stop, or if you get bleeding in your brain because you happen to be in, you were mountain biking and sat and rattling up the trail or whatever. So you do want to seek care. You do want to get checked out. The other thing you can see is horrible swelling. That's actually pretty common with these if you get a good envenomation. And if that swelling happens in one of these muscles here, where you actually got envenomation deep in the muscle belly, that muscle has a thing called fascia around it, which is tissue that doesn't stretch. And as that muscle swells, it's got nowhere to go. And what it's going to do is crush the blood vessels that feed the muscle, and the muscle dies. And the nerves that run through are long muscle for that. So you can get into trouble and lose use of your arm, your hand, your leg. With these bites if it's not taken care of quickly. And if you present really late with it because you're pretty sure it was a bite, and tomorrow you're pretty sure it was, we end up sending you to the surgeon who's going to make a cut from here to here, unzip that arm, and go in and open up each one of those muscle bellies. And now you're going home with a wound back and months of rehab and trying to get that wound closed up, which we don't like to see. The good news is about 1 in 750 rattlesnake bites kill someone. It's not that common. So, seek your care, get seen, get taken care of, and be okay. What do we do for these? This is the part that I want to impress upon people because this is the part that bothers me about treating people for this. There's 2 products in the US we're going to use if we think you have an envenomation. There's Anavib and Profab. Profab is made in sheep. They inject the venom into the sheep and floats around, and the immune system reacts to it, and they pull those antibodies, the sheep, and get out of their blood, and they purify them, make some changes to them, and they give them to you. Anavib is a similar process that we do in horses. These products are phenomenally expensive because of the way they're made and the liability associated with that, and neither of them is made in the United States. They're chronically on shortages, supply issues. Most hospitals have one or the other. And most hospitals do not have enough to give you a second dose. The cost of Profab is about $20,000 for an adult male's first dose, and often you need two. Anavib, you usually don't do the second dose, it's about $14,000. It's 10 vials, and each of them is about $1,300. That's 2024 data. These are products that are not made in the United States. I don't know what they cost right now. Quite a bit more. So when you're walking into that ER, with an event nation, you are looking at a very steep charge. And that's just for the product they're going to use to turn off the toxins. That's not the laboratory work. If we give you that product, you're getting admitted to the hospital for at least 24 hours. If you got Profab, you may need another dose, and you may need a dose as far out as 6 days out. It wears off, and sometimes the toxin has to be yet. And then we do a ton of lab work because of that issue with bleeding. So we have to watch basically your bleeding parameters. And some labs we draw every couple hours and watch that because people would suddenly get this horrible bleeding complication. So we want to avoid that at all costs. I think the most important thing here is what everybody's talked about today, which is don't get bitten in the first place because you don't want to come see me because I'm going to poke you with needles and then run up a huge charge, and that's not good for anybody. Insurance does usually cover this, but if you have a high deductible plan like I do, it's not super helpful, right? Right now, my deductible for the year from my breast. What questions folks have?
This is the part everybody wants to know.
I think your mom mentioned an anaphylactic response. Does it, in a first aid sense, other than going to calling 911, going to ER, does it ever make sense to use an EpiPen for somebody?
Yes and no. So there are folks who can get sort of allergic-like reaction to it right off the bat, particularly people who have been bitten before. There's a guy in the case reports, he's a homeless gentleman who collects rattlesnakes and gets bitten all the time, he turns up in ERs. I was in Denver briefly, most of those in Arizona. And he's had Profab, I don't know how many times. And he does occasionally get an anaphylactic reaction to both the bite and the product. So it can happen, in which case you want to use your EpiPen. I will tell you that if my ambulance crew runs on somebody who got bitten and their blood pressure is really low and they're sweating and white and shaky and look like they're in shock, we're going to give you epinephrine and use one of these EpiPens so nobody makes a dosing error. And so in that case, yes, it's technically not the label used for your prescription, but if you feel like you're going in shock, then it's not going to hurt you. But most of the time, that's not going to be an issue. The vast majority of the time, if we're getting into that, that's a weak presentation. It's because of cardiotoxins.
Any other questions?
About how long do you have? And I ask because we do a lot of backcountry hiking and trips.
The long story short is there's not a specific time at which it is no longer worth coming in to get treated. As long as it's active toxin, what we're doing is giving you the antibodies that are going to go in and grab that toxin. So if there's any circulating toxin in your body, the sooner you hit it, the more you're going to scavenge. Most people, unless it happened to be a bite that went right into a blood vessel, it's going to be a little bit before we start seeing showing symptoms. I'm hedging on that because I've had people come in where it was hours. The last guy I treated got bitten the day before. He finally comes in 8 hours later because his beer is worn off and he shows and you start and he wasn't too bad off. But I gave him all the product I had and I shipped him down to a hospital in Denver where he sat for another 4 days getting repeat dosing. That could have been a mess. So sooner is better than later. I'm balancing that, do you want a $75,000 air flight charge when you were 20 minutes from the trailhead? And I would probably chance it and try to give myself now, but I think it just doesn't make it.
So before we go there, we are fortunate in that, and I didn't warn you ahead of time, we have.
I saw it coming.
You knew it. Trustee Lee Williams here, who's with our local fire department. Do you have anything you want to say to supplement what Dr. McNitt said?
Not more than a minute, maybe a minute. My best advice is listen to the two doctors you've just heard from. Try not to get bit, stay calm, deal with it, do exactly the things that they've suggested. I can tell you that we have 2 or 3 ambulance runs a year from Lyons on suspected rattlesnake bites. So sometimes we're sure, sometimes we're not sure. We will run lights and sirens to the scene, and then we'll make a determination of whether we need to go lights and sirens to a hospital. So if the person has some obvious issues, either from prior health-related issues or from the incident, then we'll go lights and sirens. If not, we'll just take them directly to the hospital, but we'll do it in a quiet, calm way that allows them and everyone surrounding the vehicle to be safe. So my second piece of advice beyond just listening to the doctors is you should think the same way. Get yourself to the hospital if you're going to do it, but don't drive like a madman or a madwoman. It's more dangerous to you to rush to the hospital than it is to go in an extra 5 minutes and walk into the ER safely. So I would highly recommend that. I can tell you, we have had people where we've shown up on a scene, someone says, I just got bit. We recognize that that was the case, and they've gone to the hospital in their own car, and we've taken the rattlesnake out to the woods. It is a reasonable choice if you're feeling well and you're close enough, and especially if you have another person in the car, to take yourself. If we do end up transporting you, obviously we are happy to do that. We usually recommend that as the first choice. And a Lyons resident, and by Lyons, I mean Lyons Fire Protection District resident, not necessarily even a town resident, but anywhere in the district, will generally not pay for that transport. So we will do everything in our power to keep somebody who lives in the district forever having to write a check for being in that ambulance. So those are our, often your insurer will pay, sometimes we'll have to just forgive it so that you don't have to pay.
Is that just by calling 911?
Just call 911, we'll get there as quickly as we can, and we'll make sure that whether you're doing it on your own or we're taking you, you get definitive care.
Is that just humans or dogs also?
We do carry Fido bags in our fire trucks, so we have ways of giving some modest level of treatment to animals. It's obviously a lower priority.
Right.
Yeah, I just had a quick follow-up question first, so thank you so much to everyone who shared tonight. What I found really surprising or really helpful is that you might actually not know that you've been fixed, because I always picture that it's gonna be like extremely painful or a really definitive diagnosis where you're like, oh my God, I just got bit, but it sounds like based on your patient story and what you've been doing, unless there is actually physical puncture, that, I mean, you might have had contact with the snake, but there might be some uncertainty around, is this actually snake bite? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to the most recent one I've seen, generally speaking, folks have come in where it's been pretty obvious that they got, usually the story for us is somebody comes in and says, a snake got me, I think it was a rattlesnake. And then we're stuck doing detective work. Please do not bring the snake to the hospital. For 2 reasons. Number one is the snake's alive and you're trying to catch it. And if you didn't have a problem before, now you do. And the second thing is, I cannot tell you how exciting it is when somebody walks in and the snake gets loose in the air. But the big thing is folks come in, they don't really know what got them. We're looking at this wound and trying to decide, who knows. But this most recent one, the guy, was like, oh, there was a snake on the porch yesterday, and I was messing around with it. I saw some story that made absolutely no sense because he was drunk at the time and was still a little bit the next morning. And, he had, my nurses were like, it's not a rattlesnake bite. And I'm looking at him going, I sort of agree, except his hand looks really bad. And I got some lab work and said, oh no, those are the stereotypical, I got venomated labs. And by the time I went back into the room 45 minutes later to look at him, the mark man made on his hand, the swelling was no longer his finger, it was up to here. And we're going, okay, this is really bad. So The time course, everything about it's unpredictable. The only thing that is predictable is if you have a suspicion that it happened and go in and get checked out. I know that that is a financial disaster for many people. Our healthcare system is awful. And unfortunately, this is one of these things where in this area, the snakes are out here. The first bull snake I've seen on my mom's property in 20 years was the other day. Everyone I've ever seen was very real.
Do you need to get a picture of the snake?
So if you can, you know, they don't jump, they do strike, use the zoom, but a picture. The main reason for that is up here, most of the time it's gonna be a rattlesnake or a bull snake, and anybody looking at the ER is gonna have no idea that you can't tell. You know, on the other hand, a lot of the places that I'm getting folks in from, and certainly you go down by the water here, if there's a garter snake, or somebody's domestic snake you got loose, and it's some obviously not rattlesnake, then you just save yourself an enormous amount of trouble and liability. Yeah.
Right. So if you've been bitten or suspect you have, but for whatever reason, making more sense to transport yourself to the hospital,
Sure.
should you still call 911 and say, hey, get ready, he's coming in, or?
So the 911 system is different everywhere, but generally speaking, dispatch doesn't communicate to hospitals very well. And at the end of the day, with something like a snake bite, there's not a reservation process in place usually. You know, gunshot wounds are a little different. But there are things to look at as heads up, say, hey, you got some disaster that's about to show up, like grab a vehicle, we get our trauma room ready. But generally speaking, with a rattlesnake bite, we're gonna say, okay, tell a friend to escape, watch out for somebody.
You could shoot yourself too.
I think the most important thing is just letting the front desk know when you come in and say, hey, I live in a place that's full of rattlesnakes. I'm pretty dang sure I got chewed on by a rattlesnake. There is a whole thing in medicine of people under triaging people. You've seen 50 snake bites this summer, not a single one was an envenomation, and people are like, it's a busy night, I'm gonna put it in the waiting room. Well, that is not the right response. So that's probably the only thing.
And we're very blessed that we only have one kind of rattlesnake here, one kind of poisonous snake. Where I lived in Arizona, we had 13 different kinds of poisonous snakes, so with all kinds of different venom.
So we have a question with, and give it to you.
It's when relocating a rattlesnake, how far can you go without impacting its ability to find shelter and food? They recommend not taking it, again, as he said earlier, taking it off the property or away from its normal habitat. This whole area is snake central. I mean, literally, we have an ideal habitat for snakes. Does it affect the snake? Yes. Is it great to move a snake? Probably not for the snake, but the reality is snakes, most of the snakes we've handled and dealt with have been up on people's porches, against people's doors, under people's chairs, on people's walkways, in their yards where they work. They are in human interaction zones that are not safe. So moving the snake out of that interaction zone may not be ideal for the snake, but it's a lot better than the alternative, which is killing it. We definitely don't want to do that, because these snakes do amazing good things for us by getting rid of those vectors of disease transmission that are furry and run around. So,
Matt?
I have a question for the audience. How would you feel if you relocated a rattlesnake and then later on found a child or dog was bit in that area? Most people are not qualified to relocate a rattlesnake because you must put it where it will never meet a human again unless it's someone who's hiking off trail. So I just know people, most won't do it. That's what you need to think about, you know?
I can tell you this snake, 2 weeks ago, 18-inch, I came out at dusk, it was right on my steps, I was going out to get the hummingbird feeder, and it rattled, and my husband grabbed it with a grabber. He got some red spray paint, put a little dot on it, took it down the hill from us. 5 days later, it was back up on our steps. Mainly because we have a lot of rock around our house for fire mitigation, and they like the temperature regulation. So he was coming back to someplace that was warm for him. We didn't move it far enough. So he did get killed the second time.
2 strikes and you're out up at Robyn's place.
I know it was him because he had a red spot.
Okay, I'm gonna transition us from the Q&A. So we have a number of tools over here. We have some rubber snakes, if you want to practice on using any of these tools. We have some pictures, we're willing
Both
to stay
snakes
around.
and rattlesnakes, there's also pictures of the fangs of how they inject. You can take the little rattle out if you want to rattle it yourself. You can kind of see where the head, if you look, you can see the fangs stuck up in the mouth of the rattlesnake. There's some guidebooks that show pictures. You can try grabbing the snake. This is about a $30 Amazon rabbit, 69 inches. I don't jump with my artificial knees, so it's gotta be pretty far away before I'll do one. But try it, try one of these snakes and see if you can move it into.
So that's what we have them here for.